Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a place that smells like warm ale, wet straw, and the faint, lingering aroma of unwashed ambition. That's right, you've just pushed open the heavy wooden door of a real medieval tavern. The hinges groan like an old man's knees. The floor squelches under your boots, and the warmth hits you like a wall of damp wool and spilled dreams. You're not sure if it's sweat or spilled broth sticking to the floor, but it grabs your souls either way. You hesitate in the doorway, blinking into the smoky dimness. Your eyes catch the flicker of rushlight candles and a fire that seems to be burning more soot than wood. There's music. Well, something that sounds like a goat learning to play the flute. But you're too distracted by the mix of body odor and boiled onions to appreciate it fully. You've made it. You're inside a medieval tavern. And let's be honest, you're probably not going to survive the night. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And leave a comment. Where are you listening from? And what time is it for you right now? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle forward, and the door swings shut behind you with a thud that makes a few heads turn. Not that anyone really cares. Strangers drift in and out all the time. Pilgrims, soldiers, merchants with suspicious sacks. But you look like you've never been in a place where the table legs are soaked in dog pee and old gravy. You glance around. It's cramped. The ceiling beams hang low, the kind of low that makes you instinctively duck. Above your head is a lattice of smoked ham, dried herbs, and something that might have been a ferret. It's still got fur. And eyes. A heavy-set woman with arms like ox cart wheels. Elbows past you carrying a tray of mugs that slosh brown ale with every step. You hear her shout something like, "Mind your feet or I'll mind them for you." And someone laughs. Not at the joke, just because they still have teeth. You consider your options. To the left, a table where a dice game is getting rowdy. To the right, a group of men in leather jerkins arguing about whether the king even has a left ear anymore. Straight ahead is the bar, or at least a splintery plank of wood held up by two barrels, behind which stands a man who looks like he was carved from salted beef. You head for him. He doesn't look up. He's rubbing a mug with a rag that looks dirtier than the mug. His beard is matted. His forehead glistens in the firelight. His eyebrows are two shaggy beasts clashing in the middle of his face. "Drink?" he grunts. You nod. "What else are you going to say? What do you recommend?" "That's not how this works. You don't choose. You receive." He slams down a mug, fills it from a wooden tap behind him, and slides it your way. It sloshes. Something dark floats in it. You hope it's a raisin. You really, really hope it's a raisin. You take a sip. It tastes like sadness and mushrooms, with a hint of soap. Not the good kind. You cough, but try to style it out like you meant to. A man next to you laughs. "First time?" he asks, and his breath smells like pickled regret. You nod again. You'll get used to it, or go blind. Either way, it gets better. You thank him, mostly with your eyes, and retreat to a corner where the shadows are thicker and the floor is slightly less sticky. Maybe, from here, you can see more of the tavern's ecosystem. There's a long bench where two peasants are asleep, heads back, mouths open. One of them might be dead, honestly. At another table, a monk is scribbling furiously into a parchment while muttering about taxes and divine punishment. He's drinking wine, the good stuff, Or at least, the red stuff. Someone throws a chicken leg. It hits the back of your chair. A small dog limps by with a sausage in its mouth. Above you, the rafters creak, and you realize there's a loft upstairs. Lodgings, probably. You wouldn't sleep up there for a chest full of gold. Too many stories. Start with a snoring stranger and end with a knife in the ribs. You shift in your seat. The bench wobbles. Something oozes out from a crack in the wood. You don't investigate. Now the music picks up. A woman in a faded green dress steps onto a crate and begins to sing. Her voice is rough but confident, and the room hushes. Well, sort of. People still burp, and someone in the back lets out a fart that might have been a protest or a solo. The song is about a sailor who married a fish. It's oddly moving, and just when you start to settle in, to accept that maybe this place isn't so bad, a man stumbles in from the side door, blood on his sleeve, eyes wide, and shouts, "Which one of you sold me horse piss in a bottle and called it Miracle Tonic?" Every head turns, yours included. The barman doesn't flinch. Did it work? The man opens his mouth, closes it, then shrugs. Kind of. The room laughs, and just like that, the tension melts back into beer foam and the smell of burnt turnips. A fight almost broke out, but this time it didn't. Tonight's still young. You glance down at your mug. The floating thing is gone. You don't know if that's better or worse. And right then, a toothless man with a lute slung across his back pulls up a stool next to you and asks, "You new here? Ever heard the tale of the bishop's socks and the tavern wench?" You shake your head slowly. "Well then," he says, cracking his knuckles, "you're in for a real treat. But that's a story for later. First, you'll need to survive. Whatever's lurking in that back room behind the kitchen, the one where no one ever seems to return quite the same. And so, your night in the tavern has only just begun. You don't realize how truly bushy a man's eyebrows can get until one of them twitches in your direction. The barman, your reluctant host, by default, now seems to be watching you without ever lifting his gaze. It's as if his eyebrows have independent souls, and right now one of them has decided you're worth inspecting. You think about saying something witty, but what exactly does one say to a man who smells like old barley and disappointment? Probably nothing. So you nod. Respectfully, cautiously, as if you were acknowledging a territorial animal. "Got coin?" he mutters, without looking up from the mug he's now cleaning with what looks like a strip of someone's discarded sleeve. It may have once been linen. It now resembles something you'd use to bandage a leper, and not even a fussy one. You fumble in your pouch. The coins jingle. Not enough to make you rich, but just enough to make someone else notice. Two of the nearest patrons glance your way, one of them missing an eye, the other missing enough teeth to whistle through toast. You pass the smallest coin across the counter. The barman snorts. "That'll get you either a drink or directions to the nearest dung heap. Up to you." You choose the drink naturally. He fills your mug again, and this time you notice he's using a different barrel. The kind with a wax seal that looks barely legal. The liquid is darker, more serious. The scent is wood smoke, with a note of something bitter, or burnt. "You'll want to sip that," the man says, almost kindly. "Unless you don't value tomorrow." You nod again. You seem to be doing that a lot tonight. Behind you, chairs scrape on the uneven floor as a group of locals stands. One of them gives you a half-hearted scowl, the kind that says, You're not from here, but also too tired to care. You relax, marginally. You're not interesting enough to fight yet. The barman finally speaks again, eyes still on the bar. Name's Tabard, he says. Don't bother lying to me. I've heard every fake name there is. You open your mouth. He waves you off. I'm not asking, just letting you know. Don't get clever. Charming. He pours something into a small wooden cup, not for you. He sets it beside a jar. Inside the jar, floating pickled things. You don't ask what. You already know you'll dream about them later. So, Tabard says after a moment, you just wander in here looking for fun? Or are you running from something? Your answer's halfway to forming when you hear a thunk beside you. A small leather pouch lands on the bar. It smells faintly of beeswax and something metallic. Tabard, the voice says. You turn. She's tall, or maybe just confident. Hood drawn low, voice low and gravel-edged. She's wearing a dagger the way most people wear a belt. Loose, familiar, often reached for. Tabard gives her a glance, but only just. Same as last time? She nods. Doesn't look at you. You two know each other? You blurt before thinking. She turns her head slightly. You see the edge of a scar running down her jaw. We don't, she says. And we won't. You swallow your curiosity. Tabard chuckles. She's polite. You're lucky. As she walks away, you ask, Who was that? Tabard leans on the counter. No one. Everyone. Depends what time of night you're asking. But if she sits at your table, you leave the table. Noted. You sip your drink. It's strong. Too strong. The taste is like burnt herbs mixed with wet wood, but in a way that oddly grows on you. The warmth creeps in like a sneaky friend wrapping a wool blanket around your spine. You stop shivering. You're learning, Tabard says. You smile. For the first time tonight. Don't get cocky, he adds. Behind you, a voice starts singing. A tune you've never heard, but it carries a strange melancholy. The words mention a blacksmith's daughter and a sheep that could talk. Naturally. As you listen, a rat scurries along the edge of the bar, pauses to inspect your mug, then retreats. Tabard doesn't even blink. Apparently, this is normal. You lean in and ask him, What's the worst thing you've seen in here? He raises an eyebrow. Just one. Define worst. We talking morally, medically, or just things that made me lose appetite? You grin. He thinks for a second, then shrugs. Had a bishop try to baptize someone in the stew pot once. That sounds like a sin. That tasted like a sin. You both laugh. For a moment, there's almost a sense of camaraderie. Then Tabard straightens, expression shifting. Listen, he says quietly. You'll be asked questions before the night's out. Don't answer any. Not unless you want to be remembered here. And in this place, being remembered is rarely a good thing. You nod again. You really need to find new gestures. Oh, he adds. And if someone asks if you're willing to play the king's wager, say no. What is it? He leans close, lowers his voice. A game you only win if you die. You blink. I'm joking, he says, stone-faced. Then, mostly, there's a crash at the far end of the tavern. A man has fallen off his stool. Someone else steps over him without comment. The music doesn't stop. Tabard snorts. Bar closes at moonset. or when someone catches fire. Whichever comes first. You glance at the door. Still open. The temptation to leave is there, but so is the pull to stay. It's a terrible place, sure, but it's alive in a way nothing else is. Every minute here is a gamble, and you've only just begun playing. Need anything else? Tabard asks. You think about it. Then say, "What's in that back room behind the drapes?" For the first time he meets your gaze directly. He doesn't answer. And that silence? That's the loudest thing you've heard all night. You don't know what you expected Tabard to say. Maybe a laugh, a dismissive grunt, or even a cryptic, "You'll find out soon enough." But instead, you get nothing. Just that gaze, level, quiet, and unnervingly still. Then finally, he speaks. "That room's not for you." You blink. Not for me? Not for anyone who asks about it. There's something final in his tone, like a door slamming shut somewhere in the back of your mind. You look toward the room again. The drape is old, patched with what looks like sailcloth, stained in a way that might once have been wine or blood or just really angry beats. The fabric sways slightly, though there's no breeze. You're not sure if that's ominous or just badly hung linen. You're about to press further because your curiosity is very much alive and poorly socialized when someone slaps a heavy hand on your shoulder. You jump. A splash of your drink hits the floor. Somewhere under the table, a small dog sneezes. "Easy there, stranger," the man says. He's red-cheeked and cheery, the kind of cheery that makes you immediately distrustful. His beard is braided with what might be corn husk. He smells like barley and sweat and something faintly minty, which is unsettling. "First time in a real tavern, eh?" he asks. Doesn't wait for your answer. You've got the wide-eyed look, like a lamb before the cook's fire. You try to smile. It's wobbly. "I'm Pharaoh," he says, sliding onto the bench beside you. Merchant, explorer, occasional collector of objects that probably shouldn't be collected. And I can smell a green one from 3 paces. Tabard, without looking up, mutters, "You once mistook a sheep for a tax official." "Details," Pharaoh waves him off. "And to be fair, the sheep did have a very judgmental expression." You laugh, your first real one since stepping into this place. It's a small relief, like loosening a belt after a long dinner of questionable stew. Pharaoh clinks his mug against yours. "So what brings you here? Broken heart? Bad debts? Hiding from the law?" You hesitate. "Ah," he grins. "A quiet one. The best kind. Or the most dangerous. I can never remember which." He leans inconspiratorially. "Tell you what, you want to survive your first night here? You need to know the signs." "Signs?" you echo. Pharaoh nods solemnly. "Tavern signs. Not the ones swinging over the door, though if one's got a goat holding a dagger, don't go in, just trust me. But the little signs, the way the barkeep stands, the tone of the flute, whether the rats are out in the open or hiding. See that fellow with the lute?" You glance over. The musician is plucking a slow, mournful tune. His eyes are closed. One of his strings snaps mid-note and he doesn't flinch. He plays sad songs when someone in here is going to die. Pharaoh whispers. You try not to choke on your ale. "Not because of the song, mind," he adds quickly. "That'd be ridiculous." "No, he just knows. Some say he was cursed by a hedge witch. Others think he's part raven. I just think he's very observant." You stare. The musician begins a new song, still slow, still heavy. The patrons around him fall unusually quiet. Even Tabard's motion slow. Pharaoh frowns. Ah, that's not good. You eye the door again. Too late. From the other side of the tavern, you hear the soft thud of a boot against wood. Then another. The room's atmosphere shifts. It's not silence exactly. It's more like a shared breath held too long. A man steps into view. Cloaked, hooded. Not unusual, but something about the way he moves. Smooth, precise, like he's memorized the floorboards, sets your teeth on edge. Pharaoh drains the rest of his mug. "Oh dear," he mutters. "He's one of them." You whisper, "Them?" Pharaoh nods grimly. "Royal informants or hired blades. Hard to tell which until you're already bleeding." The man walks past your table without pause. You try to appear small and unremarkable, which is difficult considering you're a guest in a place where everyone else looks like they could wrestle a boar before breakfast. The cloaked figure heads, of course, toward the back room. And Tabard? He doesn't say a word. Just reaches under the bar and pulls out a small object, something that glints in the firelight before disappearing again. Then the drape lifts, and the man is gone. You release a breath you didn't realize you'd been holding. Pharaoh leans closer, whispering so close you feel the heat of his breath. "See? That's why you never ask about the back room." You nod. Slowly. Your list of questions grows shorter by the minute. Just then, a woman walks past, different from the hooded mercenary, and not the dagger-wielding one from earlier. She carries a tray of bowls, each steaming with something that smells vaguely like leek and regret. She sets one down in front of you with a wink. "On the house," she says. You hesitate. Pharaoh eyes the bowl. Then you. She likes you. Or she's trying to poison you. Either way, I'd eat. Can't insult the staff. Not here. You peer into the bowl. The contents are greenish-gray and lumpy but steaming. You dip a spoon and it wobbles like something unsure of its life choices. You taste. It's not bad. Actually, it's warming. Earthy. A little gritty. But that could just be the spoon. "You'll live," Pharaoh grins. "Maybe." And for a moment, surrounded by warmth and noise and the low hum of a place that seems to breathe, with its own lungs, you relax. The fire crackles. Someone begins a story about a haunted cheese wheel. A child, whose parent seems to be passed out in the corner, climbs onto a barrel and begins drumming with spoons. The tavern lives on, one bizarre moment at a time. But just when you're starting to feel safe, the drape at the back lifts again, and something steps out, or maybe someone. But whatever it is, it's changed. And Tabard? He mutters something under his breath that sounds suspiciously like a prayer. The shape behind the curtain isn't large. In fact, it looks remarkably ordinary. Human, even. But something's wrong. It's the way the figure moves, like a puppet with its strings pulled a second too late. Joints bend as they should, but too smoothly, too deliberately. The tavern has gone quiet again, the way it does when thunder rolls in before the storm, and all the birds go hush. Pharaoh goes rigid beside you. "Don't stare," he hisses. "You're already staring." The figure steps fully into view, hood still, drawn, hands gloved. They cross the floor silently, and for a moment you swear their feet don't quite touch the ground. A log shifts in the hearth, scattering embers, and the dancing light catches their face. Only, it doesn't. There's a mask, smooth, bone white. No eyes, no nose, just the faintest hint of a grin carved into the lower half. Not cheerful, not menacing. Just there. The room watches them pass. No one speaks. No one drinks. Even the dog under your table whimpers and curls tighter. The masked figure stops at a table in the corner. A table that had been empty just moments ago. You know it was. You noticed it was. Now somehow someone else is sitting there. An old woman, draped in shawls, face craggy and soft, like bread left out overnight. She doesn't look up. She simply places her hand on the table, palm up. The figure slides something into it. A coin, maybe, or a ring. You can't see. Then, without a word, they vanish again behind the curtain. The room doesn't exhale until 5 full heartbeats later. "What was that?" you whisper. Pharaoh sips from your mug. You don't stop him. "The collector," he says grimly. Or a message from him, or her, or it. No one really knows. He gestures toward the old woman, now sipping from a cup that wasn't there before. Sometimes people come in here to forget. Others come to be remembered. The collector's interested in the second group. You frown. "That doesn't make any sense." He pats your arm. "Exactly." Across the room the musician shifts to a faster tune. Something livelier almost. Cheery. And just like that, the tension dissolves like dust in ale. Life resumes. A man throws a pair of carved dice on the table, shouting, "For the king's tax and my last sock." 2 women near the hearth burst into cackling laughter. Even Tabard grunts and starts wiping the bar again, though with a new rag, which might be a sign of hospitality, or just him giving up on the old one entirely. You take a long sip of your drink. It still tastes like something brewed in a cauldron, but now you're grateful for it. "So what is this place?" you ask, finally. Pharaoh leans back, his chair creaking. "Ah, the eternal question. Some say it was a smuggler's den, then a monastery, then a smuggler's monastery, which honestly explains a lot. Others think it's a pocket out of time. A crossroads. A crossroads to where? Wherever you were afraid to go next. You raise an eyebrow." He shrugs. "I didn't say it made sense." Before you can press further, there's a commotion near the door. It swings open with a bang that jolts the whole room. Wind gusts in, along with a flurry of leaves and the smell of wet stone. A man stumbles in, dripping, breathless, clothes torn, face smeared with mud. Everyone turns. He opens his mouth to speak, but instead drops to his knees and coughs up a mouthful of water. Not ale. Water. Tabard tosses a towel his way. You again. The man looks up. "They're coming," he rasps. Tabard sighs. "You said that last week. No one came." This time, the man wheezes. "They saw me. They followed." Now the room goes quiet again. Someone mutters, "That fool went near the standing stones again." "Full moon," another says. "He's always like this when it's full." But the man's eyes are wide. He's not acting. He clutches at the floorboards as if afraid they'll lift up and toss him away. "They had horns," he whispers. "And no faces. Just mouths. Too many mouths." Tabard picks up a jug and pours him something strong. "Drink this." Then, Sleep it off. You'll wake up fine or dead. Either way, the noise will stop. The man gulps it down without hesitation. You turn to Pharaoh. Is he mad? Pharaoh considers it. Maybe, or maybe he's the sanest one here. Hard to say. A moment later, the man slumps sideways, snoring. Life resumes again. Don't worry, Pharaoh says, slapping your back. That sort of thing happens every other Thursday. You glance toward the door. It's still wide open. Beyond it, the forest sways. Mist creeps along the ground. Somewhere out there, things move in the dark. Slowly, deliberately, and yet no one rises to close it. Why doesn't anyone shut it, you ask? Tabard, nearby again, leans in just enough to murmur, because some things are less likely to come in if you leave it open. You freeze. Pharaoh sighs. That's what I get for staying too long. Spooked the new blood. Come on, let's get you a proper seat near the fire. He rises and gestures toward the hearth. You follow, legs a bit unsteady. As you settle onto a cushion that smells like 50 years of damp cloaks and old cabbage, you begin to feel something else. Something soft in the bones. Tired, but not in a bad way. Like the kind of tired that means your body's doing its job. You glance around. The regulars are easing back into their own rhythms. Dice, songs, arguments over debts that no one intends to pay. The dog has returned. To your feet, as if you're finally trustworthy enough to sleep near. And behind the bar, Tabard watches you. Not unkindly, just attentively, as if waiting to see which way you'll tip, toward belonging, or toward fleeing into the woods, never to be seen again. You shift closer to the fire. It crackles, pops, and far in the distance, outside the still open door, something howls. No one reacts. Apparently, that's normal too. You know that sound you hear in dreams, right before something terrible happens? The low, long howl that rattles your bones even though you're nowhere near the woods? That's what it sounds like now. Except this isn't a dream. The tavern still hums with low voices and clinks of pewter, but the firelight has shifted somehow. Longer shadows, sharper edges. You're no expert in supernatural barometric pressure, but if the room had a weather report, it would read, "Expect high tension with a chance of malevolent forest spirits." You glance at Pharaoh. He doesn't look concerned. In fact, he's humming. You nudge him. Did you hear that? He nods. Oh, absolutely. But if you act like you didn't, it usually goes away. Like taxes. You frown. Does it always come from the woods? Pharaoh sips from his new mug. He has a new mug. How does he keep acquiring mugs? Not always. Sometimes it comes from under the floor, or from the walls. But when it's from the woods, it's usually just the hollow men. You pause, spoon halfway to your mouth. I'm sorry, what? The hollow men, he says with the casual tone of someone describing a goat parade. Old forest spirits. Some say they're the memories of lost travelers. Others think they're the forest's way of taking attendance. That doesn't sound terrifying at all. Not if you don't. Go outside. You glance at the still open door. It's darker now. The mist has thickened, curling around the doorway like a cat waiting to be fed. You're pretty sure it's moved an inch closer. Shouldn't someone close it? Pharaoh looks at you, then the door, then shrugs. Hey, it'll shut itself when it's ready. You laugh nervously. That's not how doors work. In your world, maybe. Just as you open your mouth to argue, because let's face it, you're clinging to logic like a cat on a windowsill, the fire suddenly flares. A burst of orange and blue sparks shoots up the chimney. The tavern quiets again, but not completely. This hush is different, curious, expectant. You turn. There, stepping into the room, is a woman. Her hair is white, not the gray of age, but the stark white of snow on a moonless night. Her cloak is layered, leather and wool, and something shimmery you can't quite name. Her boots are muddy, but her eyes, they are the cleanest thing you've seen all night. Sharp, cold, and very awake. Pharaoh groans softly. "Oh no," you whisper. "Who is she?" "She's someone who doesn't come here unless she has to." You look again. The woman walks straight to the bar, doesn't speak, just holds up a token, wooden, carved with a spiral. Tabard sees it and stiffens. He doesn't speak either, just nods and gestures toward the back. Of course. The room. The masked one isn't far behind. Appears from nowhere, maybe from behind a beam, maybe from between moments. It doesn't matter. The woman and the masked figure look at one another, and something silent passes between them. Then they vanish behind the curtain. You whisper, "That room again." Pharaoh drinks deeply, then sighs. That room is like a rumor. If you talk about it too much, it starts to believe in itself. That makes zero sense. He leans in. Exactly, and that's why you'll do fine here. You don't feel fine. You feel like you've stepped into a story being written as you go, by someone who has read far too many folklore books and probably shouldn't be allowed near sharp objects. Just then, someone bumps into your table. A young boy, scrawny, missing one shoe, and holding a folded paper bird. He sets it in front of you. "For you," he says. You blink. "Why?" The boy shrugs and vanishes into the crowd. You unfold the paper. Inside, scrawled in ink that shimmers ever so slightly, are 5 words. "Do not follow the music." Well, that's comforting. You look around. No one seems concerned. Even Pharaoh just peers at the paper and shrugs. I wouldn't worry. Music rarely leads anywhere good. You frown. "I thought you liked the musician." Pharaoh raises an eyebrow. "I didn't say he was the problem." Just then, the tune changes again. No longer the cheerful jig or melancholy drone. This one is slow, hypnotic, almost too slow, like a song underwater, and people begin to stand, one by one. No urgency, just quiet purpose. Their eyes glassy, steps smooth. They move toward the door. You feel it now, something pulling at you, a tug in your chest, like a dream that wants you to keep sleeping even though the fire's gone out. You feel your own legs shift, just slightly. Then Pharaoh slams a mug on the table. "Right," he shouts. "Who's up for a game of pin the Moor? Plague on the peasant?" Half the room groans. Someone laughs. The music stutters. The spell breaks. Pharaoh leans close to you. "Told you. Don't follow the music." You nod. Clutch the paper note tighter. Glance again at the door, now closed. You didn't see it shut. It just is. The room exhales. The fire settles. You press your back into the chair and let the warmth soak into your spine. But even as your eyes begin to close, you can still hear it. That slow, slow song coming from beneath the floorboards. You lie awake in your seat, or maybe you're still upright. Time is slippery now, like an eel in a bishop's bathwater. Don't ask, it's a thing. The song beneath the floor has quieted, but it hasn't stopped. It lingers in your bones, humming low like a forgotten prayer, or a very polite curse. Pharaoh has drifted off beside you, chin to chest, snoring with the gentle rhythm of someone who's been through all this before. His mug rests precariously on his belly, occasionally, sloshing a bit with each snore. It should spill. It doesn't. The tavern is dimmer now, not darker, just older. Dust settles differently. The rafters seem longer, stretched. The candles burn slower, as if reluctant. The dog under your table snores too, but even that sounds suspiciously like a warning. A breeze slips in from nowhere. The kind of breeze that carries scents, old leaves, iron, lavender, and something like burnt honey. You sit up straighter. You weren't planning to, but your spine seems to have its own agenda. There's someone at the fireplace. You didn't hear them arrive, which is getting alarmingly common. This person is tall, or maybe it's just the shadow. Cloaked, hooded. You're starting to develop an aversion to cloaks. They're never just clothing here. They're statements. This one says, "I know things you probably wish I didn't." They turn slightly, and for a moment you glimpse what's underneath the hood. Not a face. Faces are so last century, but something like eyes that remember. Deep and knowing, the kind that make you feel like a minor footnote in someone else's myth. You whisper to Pharaoh, "Do you see him?" Pharaoh, without opening his eyes, murmurs, "Don't look directly at him. You'll encourage a monologue." You quickly avert your gaze. Too late. The figure speaks. You're new. The voice is quiet, yes, but it cuts clean through the taverns. Gentle din like a hot spoon through butter, because knives are too mainstream here. It's not a question. It's a statement. Like the taxman saying, "I see you bought a second goat." You clear your throat. Yes? The figure nods slowly. "You should choose a name soon." You blink. "I already have one." "Not that kind of name," they reply. "The kind that won't echo when they call for you in the mists." Helpful. Very clear. They don't say more. Just turn back to the fire like they've delivered their cryptic quota for the evening. You whisper to Pharaoh again. "Do people actually live here?" He finally opens one eye. "Live? Depends on your definition. Some folks sleep here. Others stay long enough to forget where they came from. One guy's been in the same seat since the Great Lint Famine of 1243. "That's not a real year," Pharaoh grins. "Doesn't have to be. Just has to be true here." At that moment, a soft clinking sound echoes from the rafters. You look. Up there, dangling from the crossbeam above your head, is a row of keys. Rusty, mismatched, some tied with bits of string or dried herbs. They're swaying gently, as though remembering a breeze that's long gone. "Those weren't there before," you murmur. Pharaoh shrugs. "They appear when they need to." Need to unlock what? A long pause. Then, sometimes a door, sometimes a person. You stare at them a little longer than you mean to. One key catches your eye. Sleek, blackened, faintly humming, it feels like it's looking back. Before you can ask more, a great clang rings out from the back. Not the usual creak or groan of this perpetually tired building. This is deliberate, like something heavy hitting metal. Everyone flinches. Even tabard. Ah, Pharaoh says. Inventory night. You blink. What kind of inventory needs that noise? The kind that occasionally misbehaves. You start to stand. Pharaoh grabs your sleeve. Don't, I mean it. You sit. The noise stops. The fire crackles. Everyone resumes pretending like they didn't just hear the tavern wrestle with its own storeroom. To distract yourself, you glance toward the corner where the old woman had once sat, the one who met the collector. She's gone. In her place now is a large circular mirror. Definitely wasn't there before. Framed in carved wood shaped like twining vines and eyes. So many eyes. The glass is cloudy, but you're pretty sure it's not reflecting what's really in the room. You nudge Pharaoh again. Why is there a mirror? He peeks over. Oh, right. Must be scrying season. You stare at him. He sighs, like someone forced to explain things to a toddler who thinks fire is a kind of edible snack. Some people try to see the future. Others try to see their past. The mirror does neither, but it's very convincing. Is it dangerous? Only if you start believing it. You gulp and look away. At the bar, Tabard starts wiping the same spot again. Over and over. It's been hours. Either it's the cleanest plank in the world, or he's wiping away something that keeps coming back. A traveler near the door suddenly coughs, and feathers puff out. Real ones. Small and black, like from a raven. He doesn't seem surprised, just sighs and mutters, "Not again." Then orders another drink. You stare into your own cup. The liquid inside swirls. It's darker. Now, almost purple. It smells like cloves and ink and something like thunder. You're not entirely sure drinking it is a good idea anymore. Pharaoh leans in close, his voice low. There's a rumor, he says, that this place shifts depending on who walks through the door, that it's never quite the same twice. Some say it listens, watches, adjusts. You look around. The fire's shaped differently now. The beams overhead seem farther apart. The keys above are gone. The mirror? Still there. But now it's smiling. You never knew mirrors could smile. Pharaoh shrugs. Me, I think the tavern just gets bored. And outside, where the trees should be, is now only fog. Thick, rolling, endless. No moon, no stars, just you, this impossible room, and the sense that if you stepped out there now, you'd be walking into someone else's memory. Or maybe your own, one you don't remember having. And the music? Still humming, still below the floorboards, still waiting. You're starting to understand something important. The tavern is not a building. It pretends to be a building, very convincingly with its cracked beams, smoky hearth, and that one eternally sticky spot near the stairs. But underneath the surface, it breathes like a creature, shifts like a dream. And tonight, you're sitting squarely in its stomach. Pharaoh's snoring again, head tilted back, lips parted in an almost musical wheeze. You've learned that this is how he processes. Stress, drink, ramble, snore. You envy it. You, meanwhile, are locked in a mental loop, wondering if the smiling mirror in the corner is smirking directly at you. It is. The tavern's mood has changed again. Less firelit mystery, more whispered anticipation. Like something's about to arrive. And it does. The door creaks open without a hand to guide it. Just swings slowly until the outside fog curls in like a velvet scarf. Through the haze steps a man, Well, man might be generous. He's tall, sharp-featured, and moves like someone who's practiced walking through crowds that part before him. His coat is too clean, his boots too dry, and his eyes too blue. Not sky blue, not cornflower. More like glacier melt with a suggestion of hidden spears beneath. He carries no bag, no weapon, no hat. Just a presence. And everyone notices. The tavern doesn't go silent, but it muffles. Conversations drop to murmurs. The fire dims, not out, of fear, but politeness. Even the air adjusts itself. The kind of hush reserved for church bells and royal funerals. He walks up to the bar and smiles at Tabard. "Room," he says. Tabard doesn't ask which one, just nods. The man doesn't glance at you, which is somehow worse than if he had. You lean toward Pharaoh. "Who's that?" Pharaoh doesn't snore. He doesn't even blink. Don't ask. You ask anyway. "Some kind of noble?" Pharaoh finally looks at you, tired and serious. "That man is not a noble. He's an envoy." You frown. "From where?" "From wherever people stop asking questions." "Oh, perfect." The man walks, not to the curtain behind the bar like the others, but toward the staircase. The one you assumed led to cramped sleeping quarters and a suspicious number of rats. But as he begins to ascend, the steps grow longer, darker. You swear the walls lean in to watch him go. He vanishes around the curve. No one follows. Not even with their eyes. Then a new sound. Tap, tap, tap. It's not your imagination. It's the unmistakable rhythm of dice on wood. You turn. There, in the corner beneath a crooked beam, 3 figures sit at a table covered in bones, coins, cards, and shadow. They weren't there a moment ago, but no one seems surprised. Pharaoh groans. "Oh no. The 3 are back." You blink. "The 3? He leans closer. "Gamblers, or prophets, or maybe just hallucinations. But they show up when choices are near." "Near?" "For you." You look again. The 3 are unlike anyone else in the room. One is dressed in black feathers and has no face. Just a veil of lace where eyes should be. One is made of metal and moss, hands jointed like a marionette, moving with eerie grace. The 3rd is you, or very close. Same shape, same smile, but older, tired, and looking straight back. You recoil. "Okay, nope, no thank you." Pharaoh pats your arm. "They don't make you play, but if you sit down, you will wager something." "What kind of something?" He shrugs. "Time, memory, teeth. You know, wagery things." You look again, and the table is empty. Just a drafty corner, a cracked stool, and the faint scent of burnt cinnamon. You're positive they were there. "Tell me this," you mutter. "Do people ever just come in for soup?" Pharaoh actually laughs. "Once. But the soup knew too much and had to be relocated." You press your palms to your face. You're not sure if your brain is melting or evolving. The mirror smirks harder. Tabard whistles once, sharply. "Closing in 10, he calls, though it's impossible to know what time it is. No windows, no clocks, just a vaguely eternal dusk. "Should we leave?" you ask. Pharaoh shrugs. "Leave where? You remember the road? You think hard. You don't. You remember trees, fog, something howling, and the sense that you were supposed to come here, though you're still not sure why. Then again, you do feel safer now, like you're inside a story rather than outside. The door, Pharaoh stretches. You'll sleep here tonight. Don't worry, it's mostly fine. Try not to accept dreams from strangers. You raise an eyebrow. You'd be surprised how many people offer. The tavern has already shifted again. Tables are being cleared. Shadows lengthen politely. Tabard closes the ledger that no one ever sees him write in. The candles flicker in synchronized farewell. You follow Pharaoh up the stairs. But these ones, strangely, don't elongate. They creak and groan like stairs should. Your room is small, low-beamed, and filled with the scent of dried lavender and old paper. There's a bed. There's a window, though it opens to more fog. There's even a wash basin that occasionally blinks. Don't mind that, Pharaoh says. It only judges. You collapse onto the bed. The pillow exhales dust and something, like violets. You let your eyes fall shut. Pharaoh pauses at the door. Oh, and one more thing, he says casually. You mumble, what? If you wake up and there's a second door in your room, don't open it, no matter what it promises. You sit up. There's only one door, right? He smiles. Right now, yeah. Then he's gone. You're alone. You lie in bed, eyes on the ceiling beam, listening. The fire below still crackles. The music is back. Slow again. Softer. There's no second door. Not yet. You don't remember falling asleep, but now you're awake, and something has changed. The ceiling is the same. Rough-hewn beams, faint spider webs, one very judgmental moth. But the light is different. Not candlelight, not dawn. Something blue, and slow and underwater, like moonlight that forgot how to behave. You sit up slowly. The bed groans, the air sighs, and the mirror across the room. Wait, was there always a mirror in here? Foggles with your breath, even though you're several feet away. There's still only one door. So far, you swing your legs over the side of the bed. The floor is cold. Not medieval cold, which you've sort of acclimated to, more like personal cold. Like it knows you're awake and wants to greet your ankles personally. Lovely. You tiptoe to the window. Still fog. Still nothing. Still everything. And then you hear it. Footsteps. But not normal ones. These don't tap or clack or even creak. These footsteps whisper. Like someone dragging a feather across a library floor at midnight. You press your ear to the door. Silence. Of course. You open the door. Pharaoh is standing there. You flinch so hard your teeth ache. He blinks, holding a plate with a very sad-looking piece of bread, and something that might be cheese or an ambitious mushroom breakfast, he says. Technically, you take it. It's warm. You're not sure from what. He nods toward the stairs. You're invited. To what? He shrugs. Depends on what the tavern feels like today. You follow him down. The air smells different, richer, spiced. Something roasting in a distant kitchen, or possibly being summoned. You hear soft music, flute maybe, or wind through bones. Hard to tell here. The tavern is awake, not just open, awake. The tables are rearranged. There's a circle in the center now, surrounded by benches. People are seated quietly, sipping from identical black cups. No one's speaking. Everyone's listening. At the center stands a woman in dark robes with a heavy book open in her arms. Her voice is smooth as smoke and just as easy to get lost in. And so the harvest failed, and the rats were consulted, and the king of grain was overthrown by the queen of mold. You blink, she continues. It is written that on the coldest nights, the bread would hum lullabies, and the ovens would whisper secrets. Not all edible, not all forgivable. The audience nods, as if this is perfectly reasonable. You lean toward Pharaoh. "What is this?" he whispers. "Tavern school, local history, oral tradition, wild speculation. Pick one." You sit. The woman's eyes flick toward you, just once, as if ticking a box. "And now," she says, "the tale of the wandering vintner and the village that forgot how to ferment." Oh no. The story unfolds slowly, richly. She speaks of a man who traveled with barrels that aged with time itself. Villagers who drank truth from flasks only to forget their own names. Of songs carved into cork, and bottles that could only be opened by telling a secret you didn't know you had. You're almost lulled to sleep again when someone clears their throat sharply. From behind the bar, it's Tabard. He's holding a scroll. His face is tight. "Post arrived?" he says flatly. Everyone freezes. Pharaoh mutters, "That's not good. You're learning that in this place, mail is not about stamps and missed birthdays. It's news. Capital N. From elsewhere. From whatever. Reality the tavern floats in." Tabard breaks the seal. He reads. His brow furrows. "A village burned, east of the river that boils in spring. Survivors headed this way." The room rustles. Not panicked, just shifted. Realigned. "Hostiles?" someone asks. "Unclear," Tabard says. The woman with the book closes it with a thud. "They'll need food," she says. "And dreams." Pharaoh stands. "I'll start warming the west wing." "Wait," you say, suddenly. "There's a west wing?" Pharaoh grins. "Not usually." You're left sitting in the middle of the room, holding your not-quite bread, wondering if you're part of the tavern now, or if it's part of you. Then someone taps your shoulder. You turn. It's the collector. She's holding a bundle wrapped in waxed cloth. "I believe this is yours," she says. You frown. "I've never seen that." "You will," she replies gently. She leaves it on the table. Inside, you find a coin with your face on both sides, a candle that won't light, a feather, black and soft, a key shaped like a question. Mark, you blink. The room hums. You're not sure. But the tavern feels closer now, as if it's wrapped a little more snugly around your story. Like it's decided, yes, this one belongs here. The fire crackles in agreement. The door creaks open again, and for a moment, just a moment, you think you see the outside. Real outside. Sky, trees, the road, but it blinks shut again. You stay seated, because now you're waiting too. You're no longer sure how long you've been here. Not in the poetic sense. Oh, time feels slow in this dreamlike place. No. You genuinely can't tell whether it's been 2 days or 2 years. You still look the same. Still feel mostly like you. But there's a softness to your thoughts now, like pages turned too often. And this morning, the spoon stirred your porridge before you touched it. So, that's new. You're seated at your usual table. Yes, you have a usual table now. with a lukewarm drink that tastes vaguely of spiced apples and possibly regret. Across from you, Pharaoh is whittling a toothpick into something resembling a miniature gallows. He calls it recreational carpentry. The tavern, as always, breathes around you. Today it smells like sun-warmed hay, roasted parsnips, and faint anxiety. The door opens, and in walks someone who absolutely should not be here. Full plate armor, crested helm, cape that screams, "I paid someone to stitch my family trauma into this." They stomp into the room with the self-importance of someone who's never cleaned their own latrine. Everyone looks up. Even the fireplace seems to hesitate, flames flickering in disbelief. Pharaoh groans. "A night? Fantastic." You blink. "I thought nights were rare." They are, and they're loud. The knight marches up to Tabard and announces, "I seek passage through the Blackwood. I require guidance and provisions." Tabard doesn't flinch. "You'll want a crow's feather, 2 jars of root paste, and someone who doesn't value their sanity." "Done," the knight says, tossing a coin that clinks with unnecessary arrogance. Pharaoh leans toward you. "Watch, he's going to ask." You whisper, "Ask what?" "Just wait." Sure enough, the knight turns, surveys the room, and then points directly at you. You look capable." "Oh no." Pharaoh snorts into his drink. You blink. "Me?" "Yes," the knight says. You have a steady gaze, a strong chin. You're not currently engulfed in flames. That's good enough. You open your mouth to protest, but the room is watching. Even the 3-headed cat curled on the windowsill has stopped mid-lick. You say eloquently. The collector glides past and murmurs, "Say yes, just to see what happens." So of course you do, which is how you find yourself an hour later standing at the edge of the tavern's back garden, which now, inexplicably, includes a gate to the Blackwood. Pharaoh hands you a small pack. "Here, dried mushrooms, flask of dream water, 6 pebbles with strong opinions." You raise an eyebrow. "What kind of opinions?" "Mostly about drainage systems. Don't get them started." The knight mounts a truly enormous horse, like cartoonishly enormous, clearly compensating, and brandishes a lance that glows faintly with enchantment, or possibly envy. "Stay close," the knight orders. The woods can confuse even the cleverest guide. You look back, the tavern is still there, but already it feels like something you remember rather than something you belong to. Still, the wind carries the smell of parsnips and burnt cinnamon. A reminder, a tether. You step into the woods. The Blackwood is quieter than expected. Not peaceful, just watching. The trees here don't sway in the wind. They tilt toward sound. The moss pulses faintly like it's breathing. The light sifts down in thick, golden beams except when it doesn't. The knight speaks often, mostly about his deeds. You learn, over the course of several hours, that he's vanquished a bog spirit, danced with a marsh queen, badly, and once ate an entire roast boar to impress a priestess who turned out to be an illusion made of bees. Good times, he says, utterly without irony. You, meanwhile, listen and survive until the bridge. It's made of bone, not just decorated with bones, made of them, carefully stacked, polished, and interlocked like a macabre jigsaw puzzle. The knight pauses. We must cross. You hesitate. Are those Human? Mostly sheep, I think. You step forward. The bridge creaks, whispers, and just as you reach the middle, it asks you a question. Not out loud, not in a voice, in your head. A soft whisper behind your eyes. What have you forgotten? You freeze. The night keeps walking, unbothered. Clearly, bridges never whisper to him, but you hesitate, because the bridge is waiting. You think, hard. Your old home? Your real name? That dream you had when you were 5 about the giant made of buttons? You whisper back, I don't know. The bridge shivers and lets you pass once. Across, you feel different. Not older, not wiser. Just a little more you. The night is already inspecting a map. Almost there. Where? You ask. He points ahead. The mirror tree. It sees through illusions. I need it to tell me the truth about the fire. What fire? He doesn't answer. You walk the last mile in silence. The trees thin. The light shifts. And then, there it is. A tall, silver-barked tree with mirrored leaves that shimmer without. Wind. It hums. Low, like it's tuning itself. The knight approaches, removes his helmet and kneels. Show me, he says. The tree responds, you can't describe it. Not really. A pulse of vision. A rush of memory. A fire, yes. But one that wasn't started by bandits. One that wore a familiar crest. His crest. He falls to his knees, shaking. I didn't know. You place a hand on his shoulder. He looks up at you. Smaller now. Human. I can't go back. You nod. Then come with me. And together you walk back toward the tavern, where the lights are always on. You make it back just as the lanterns are being lit. They hang from the tavern's eaves like sleepy fireflies. Except, of course, they are sleepy fireflies. Drowsy little things, wobbling in glass orbs, pulsing with gentle amber light. One of them floats too low and bumps into your ear. It hums an apology and wobbles away. The night walks beside you, quieter now. The armor still gleams, but it feels heavier, like the shame has settled into the steel itself. Tabard sees you both from the doorway and raises an eyebrow. Did the tree tell him he's been a pompous cretin all along? You shrug. Something like that. Inside, the tavern has rearranged itself again. Tonight, there's music. Real music. Someone's plucking a lute in the corner, and there's a soft drum beat tapping like a second heartbeat. A few locals sway together in a dance that doesn't seem to follow any particular rhythm. Just emotion, memory, maybe muscle memory from dreams they never had. Pharaoh waves you over. You look like you've just walked out of a morality tale. You flop into the chair beside him. Technically, I was part of one. The knight lingers awkwardly near the bar. Tabard pours him a drink without asking, without charging. They clink mugs. And for once, the knight doesn't make it into a speech. You take a sip from your own cup and nearly choke. What is this? Pharaoh peeks into it. Looks like cider. Tastes like honesty. It does. It really does. Which is probably why the next moment unfolds the way it does. The door opens, slowly, without fanfare, and someone steps through. You recognize them instantly, because they look exactly like you. Same face, same posture, same slightly tilted eyebrow. you're still convinced is from a poorly thought-out childhood dare involving candle wax and a daredevil beetle. The tavern falls completely silent. Pharaoh leans in. Okay, this one's new. You, the real you, stand up. The other you does the same. Mirrors. No hostility. Just waiting. Tabard clears his throat. Someone's looped. The collector drifts into view. Ah, happens from time to time. The tavern doesn't like loose ends. You blink. Loose what now? The other you speaks, and it's your voice. But gentler. Older. Tired in a way your bones haven't caught up to yet. I'm the version of you that left. Left what? The tavern. The whole thing. Got out. Returned to the so-called real world. You glance at Pharaoh. Is that possible? He doesn't answer. Just watches carefully. Other you steps closer. I remember the first real morning. Alarm clocks, emails, no mushrooms with opinions. You grimace. That sounds awful. It was. At first, a pause, but I also remember walking past a bakery that smelled like the tavern, just for a second. I looked inside. There was no one there, but the bell above the door chimed once, like someone knew. They reach into their coat. Same coat as yours, only slightly more worn, and hold out something small and glimmering. A button. Black. Shiny. Familiar. It fell off your cloak 3 nights ago, they say. Before you helped the knight. Before you crossed the bridge of bone. You look down. The clasp of your cloak is indeed missing something. But how? The collector speaks, voice soft as parchment turning. Sometimes the tavern lets you go, but it keeps a thread, in case you're needed again. You take the button. It's warm. And suddenly, just for a moment, you remember standing in a city street, rain on your shoulders, blinking at the sudden memory of a fire-lit room that couldn't possibly be real, of a mirror tree, of laughter echoing inside a drink. But that's gone now, and you're still here. Other you smiles. I just came to return it. That's all. You'll know when it's time. And they walk out. No fanfare. No poof of smoke. Just gone. The door closes gently behind them and the tavern exhales. Everyone returns to their drinks. Except you. You sit there, the button in your palm, and you feel something small click back into place. Not just on your cloak, but somewhere inside. Pharaoh says nothing, just sips his drink and waits. Do loops happen often? You ask finally. He shrugs. Not unless you're interesting. You glance around the tavern. The 3-headed cat is watching you. One head purrs, another hisses. The third yawns dramatically. Someone in the corner is telling a joke in a language that sounds like rain falling sideways. The fire shifts, revealing a new painting above the mantel. You squint. It's a blurry image of you standing beside the knight in the forest. Pharaoh sees you staring. Yeah, it does that too. You sit back, the tavern hums. And somewhere outside the window the wind carries the faintest sound of laughter. Maybe yours. Maybe not yet, but definitely soon. You dream with your eyes open now. Not in the unsettling, please see a physician sort of way, but in the soft, liminal sense that comes from never quite knowing whether the story's ended or simply changed its clothes. Tonight, the tavern smells like cardamom and wet parchment. Someone spilled a bottle of ink near the hearth earlier, and instead of cleaning it up, the puddle appears to have organized itself into a perfect map of a coastline no one recognizes. The chairs rearranged in approval. One even clapped. You're curled in your usual corner, wrapped in your usual cloak, with the button, "Thank you very much," when Tabard clears his throat dramatically. He's holding a parchment. A very old parchment. A very shiny parchment. "A message," he announces, "from the Council of Thrice Rewritten Ordinances." Pharaoh looks up from his mug. "I thought they disbanded." "They did," says Tabard, "but then they rebanded. Twice. Hence the name." He slaps the parchment down on the nearest table and it bursts into flames for 2 seconds, just enough for dramatic effect, then politely extinguishes itself. You peer over. The writing is ornate, old, the sort of script that demands a certain amount of squinting. It says, "All guests bearing the mark of the crooked spoon are summoned to the festival of shifting names. Attendance is mandatory. Regrets are irrelevant." You raise an eyebrow. "Crooked spoon?" Pharaoh, without looking up, drops a tarnished spoon onto the table. It's bent. Badly. Clearly intentional. "I may have signed you up for something," he says. You blink. "When?" "Somewhere between the 3rd cup of honesty cider and the bridge made of bones." "Why?" He shrugs. "Thought you could use a distraction." You stare at him, then at the spoon, then at the parchment, which now smells faintly of roasted garlic. "Where is the festival of shifting names?" Tabard grins. "Outside." You step to the door and open it, and it's no longer the muddy path, lined with tired hedges and lost dreams. No, now it's a wide cobblestone avenue bathed in lavender light, strung with floating lanterns shaped like question marks. Music wafts in the air, lilting, shifting melodies that sound different with every step. There are crowds, so many people, all of them wearing name tags, all of them changing those name tags by hand, by magic. Some with feather quills, others with smoke trails that rewrite themselves in mid-air. A man walks past you. His tag reads, "Gregory the Mostly Certain." But by the time he vanishes into the crowd, it says, "Frida, decisive at last." You turn back to Pharaoh, who now stands beside you. "What is this?" He smiles. "Once a year, everyone gets to be someone else." You don't know whether to feel horrified or relieved, but the tavern has already nudged you forward. Yes, nudged. With one of the front steps. You're not even going to ask how, so you step in. The festival wraps around you like steam from a warm bath. The sounds are bright and strange. Bells, laughter, something that might be a singing turnip. It's hard to tell in this light. You pass a booth titled "Lost Identities Reclaimed." Buy one, get two. Another offers temporary fates, deeply discounted for groups of 3 or more. Someone bumps into you. They look exactly like the mayor from the town 3 valleys over, only taller and made entirely of velvet. "Watch your step," they mutter, and vanish in a puff of syllables. You find a stand that offers name swaps. You hesitate, but only for a moment, because the attendant is already holding up a mirror. And in that mirror, your reflection wears a name you haven't heard in years. One you forgot. One that feels warm in your chest like a hearth before dawn. You nod, the mirror hums, and the name floats to your chest, resting there like a gentle hand. For the rest of the night, you are someone slightly new, slightly old, entirely familiar. The night is here too, though tonight he's dancing, with a baker, with a librarian, with someone who might be a cloud. He laughs, and it's the kind of laugh that leaves behind echo crumbs for birds to follow. You try a drink labeled existential clarity. It tastes like grapefruit and overdue apologies. You like it, and then, slowly, the festival begins to dissolve. Not end. Just blur. The stalls dim. The music stretches like taffy in reverse. People walk backward without realizing it, words folding back into mouths like secret letters. And you're back at the tavern's door. You don't remember walking there. You step inside. Everything's warm again. Familiar. Your chair waits. So does your name. Your real one, or at least the one the tavern likes best. Pharaoh hands you a small pastry. It's filled with recognition, he says. Might be a little tart. You take a bite. It tastes like something you haven't said out loud yet. The fire crackles. The cat has turned into a chandelier again, but only halfway. And you, well, you lean back, close your eyes, and let the world tilt gently toward sleep. You wake up before the tavern does, or maybe you never really slept, just sort of drifted sideways in your chair while the fire painted quiet dreams across the backs of your eyelids. There's a hush in the air, not silence exactly. More like everything is holding its breath. The mugs, the spoons, the upside-down chandelier cat. They're all still, as if waiting for a cue from a conductor who's momentarily misplaced their baton. Even Pharaoh is quiet. You stretch, and your cloak rustles with a whisper of dried lavender someone must have tucked in there while you weren't paying attention. It smells like peacefulness with a dash of mischief. Then, from the shadows near the hearth, a voice curls out like smoke. Have you ever heard a secret so old it forgot what it was hiding? The collector steps forward. You're not surprised. You've stopped being surprised. At this point, if the ceiling peeled back to reveal a council of owls debating medieval economics, you'd just ask for minutes from the last meeting. Come with me, the collector says. You glance at Pharaoh. He gives a subtle nod and waves. You on like you're late for something wonderful and possibly mildly dangerous, so you follow. The collector leads you past the kitchen, where the butter churn is humming something suspiciously like a sea shanty, past a door labeled "Not for Guests," unless it's Tuesday, and through a narrow hallway that should be far too short to lead anywhere meaningful. It leads somewhere meaningful. A spiral staircase drops down into the dark. You descend. Each step echoes differently. Some clink like metal. Some creak like old wood. One step moans like it's writing poetry about heartbreak. Another sneezes. Eventually, you arrive at a low cavern lit only by jars filled with fireflies, who seem to be playing cards inside their glass homes. The collector gestures. This, they whisper, is the memory cellar. It's vast, stretching in all directions, rows upon rows of shelves, bottles, drawers, books, objects you don't recognize, each labeled in a looping hand. That one summer with the swans. The first time someone lied about soup. Tuesday. You pick up a jar that holds a marble and a broken shoelace. The label reads, "The day you almost gave up, but didn't." Your fingers tingle. The collector watches you with a gaze made of parchment and patience. The tavern keeps things, not everything, just important fragments, moments that ripple, the kind that never quite stop happening. You wander down a row. There's a rusted key tagged The locked door you never tried. A feather called that idea you abandoned too soon. A sealed letter that says only, meant for you eventually. You pause in front of a dusty mirror. It shows you as a child, but not in a sad way. You're building something with blocks and telling a story no one else can hear. But you're laughing at your own jokes, and honestly, they're not bad. You turn away before it can show more. I don't remember all of this, you murmur. You don't have to, the collector replies. The tavern does. You finally reach a door at the far end. It's plain wood, but something behind it pulses faintly like a heartbeat made of candlelight. Inside, the collector says, is one of the tavern's oldest guests. They've been sleeping for centuries, but they're beginning to stir, and they asked for you. Your throat feels dry. Why? A pause. Because you still ask questions. That seems like both a compliment and a warning. You push the door open. Inside is a small room, round and warm. A bed made of moss and velvet cradles something tall and wrapped in blankets. Its face is obscured. Just the sound of breathing. Deep, rhythmic, ancient. There's a chair. You sit, and after a moment the sleeper speaks. Do you remember the tower? Their voice is rough, like crumpled scrolls in gravel, and oddly familiar. You answer truthfully. No. They nod, slowly. You will. They lift one hand, point at your chest. At the top of the tower you left a question. One you were too afraid to answer. The tavern is taking you there. You blink. When? They smile beneath their hood. Now. The moss beneath you drops away. Gently. Not with fear, but with inevitability. You fall upward, yes, upward, into a spiral of wind and color and scent. Lavender and old parchment. Ink and distant thunder. Your name stretched into song. You land on a stone floor. It's misty here. You're on a staircase spiraling around a tower's hollow core. Each step etched with phrases in languages you half remember from dreams. Pharaoh stands at the top, casually holding 2 mugs of cider. Took you long enough, you join him at the edge. There's a window, and through it, the entire tavern from above. Shifting, breathing, stretching out into places that shouldn't exist, and probably don't unless someone's watching. Why bring me here, you ask. Pharaoh leans over the edge, tosses one of the mugs to a waiting vine. Because you needed to see it. See what? He looks you in the eye. That none of it is permanent, but none of it is lost either. You don't respond right away, because somewhere far below the tavern laughs, and you feel something unravel, gently, like a knot releasing. It might be relief or readiness. You're not sure which yet, but you do know this: the journey isn't over. And the tavern, well, it's always waiting. Back at the tavern, things aren't exactly as you left them. For starters, the chandelier cat is no longer half cat. It's now a full chandelier, and very offended that no one noticed the transformation. It jingles passive-aggressively whenever someone walks beneath it. Pharaoh's taken up knitting. He claims it's for tactical warmth. Tabard's writing a cookbook that's mostly just lists of things not to eat in the forest. And the hearth? It has opinions now. Loud ones. Mostly about soup. You return through the front door just as a jug of cider rolls past your foot and into a pile of softly snoring chairs. Rough landing? Pharaoh asks, without looking up from a scarf he's clearly making for a duck. You shrug. Let's just say I fell up a staircase and talked to someone who remembers me better than I do. Pharaoh grins. So, a normal Tuesday, the tavern, is quieter tonight. Not less alive, just gentler, as though it knows your thoughts need room to stretch out. It gives you a seat that feels like a hug and a drink that tastes like remembering where you left your confidence. Then the door creaks open. In walks a figure wearing 12 hats. You count. Twice. Still 12. Each one is stacked precariously, balanced with the elegance of someone who clearly didn't read the chapter on physics. The hats are labeled with titles like Mostly Reliable Historian, Backup Prophet, and Wednesday's Mayor. Everyone glances up, but no one acts surprised, because this is Hatley. You've heard of them, even if you didn't know. Hatley walks to the center of the room, places a very small stool on top of a barrel, stands atop both, and unrolls a scroll that nearly reaches the hearth. Story night, they declare. No one cheers, not because they don't love story night, but because there's a sacred hush that always falls beforehand, like the air's about to be folded into something new. You find yourself sitting straighter, listening harder. Hatley begins. It's a story about a medieval tavern, but not this tavern, a different one. Older, stranger, one made from the bones of forgotten roads and the laughter of those who never paid their tab. The story is wild. There's a king disguised as a chimney sweep, a barmaid who speaks in riddles, a bard who can only sing in reverse, and, most importantly, a map hidden in the foam of a particularly unruly mug of ale. Hatley's voice dips and soars. You feel like you're inside the story, walking its muddy paths, smelling its strange hearth smoke that's faintly reminiscent of roasted blueberries and guilt. Then comes the twist. The tavern is cursed, not by ghosts or witches, but by routine. Every night the same guests, the same stories, the same spilled drinks, until one night someone new arrives, a traveler with no name, someone who asks questions, someone who doesn't accept the tavern the way it is. Hatley pauses, looks at you. You'd be surprised how powerful that is, they say, not even pretending to be subtle anymore. Then they leap dramatically from the stool, roll up the scroll, and bow so low their fifth and eighth hats fall off. Story night ends when the last hat falls, Hatley explains, scooping them up. Them's the rules. You're left blinking at the space where the tale lingered, because, of course, it wasn't just a story. Not really. Pharaoh plunks down beside you, scarf now tangled around both his arms and a nearby teapot. That story was always going to find you, he murmurs. You tilt your head. You mean it was about me? No, he says, sipping cider. It was about the part of you that still wonders what else is out there. You glance at the fire. The flames rise slightly, almost as if agreeing. Then, quietly, someone new enters. The tavern. A traveler, wrapped in a cloak stitched with places you don't recognize. Their boots drip stardust. Their eyes flicker like candlelight through fog. They nod to you, you nod back, and you know. Your role here has shifted. You're no longer just the visitor. You're becoming part of the legend. One cup of cider at a time. Pharaoh leans closer. You'll guide someone soon, you know. Through what? You ask. He shrugs. Whatever they need to get through. That's how this place works. A pause. Then he adds, Also, probably a marsh made entirely of whispering. Weeds. So wear taller boots. You smile. Because that sounds exactly right. And as the fire crackles and the chairs begin snoring again, you realize the story's not repeating. It's spiraling, returning with echoes, not copies. And you're walking its center, gently, curiously, with your pockets full of half-remembered names and dreams that still smell like lavender. You settle back, the tavern breathes around you, and the night begins its next page. You wake up to the sound of singing cheese. Yes, you're sure of it. Somewhere in the kitchen, a wheel of sharp cheddar is harmonizing with a wedge of particularly dramatic goat's milk brie. You suppose it was only a matter of time before the dairy got musical. Pharaoh pokes his head around the doorway, looking entirely unbothered. Ignore the cheese. It's auditioning for next week's entertainment slot. You sit up slowly, brushing biscuit crumbs off your sleeves. Is that normal? Normal is a moving target around here, he says, tossing you a piece of bread that smells like it has opinions. Eat. You'll need the energy. Why? You ask. Pharaoh grins. It's delivery day. Now you were expecting something slightly more mundane. Maybe someone dropping off barrels of mead or a cart full of suspiciously aggressive cabbages. But instead, you're swept outside into a whirlwind of carts, crates, and creatures. Because it turns out, in the medieval tavern economy, delivery is not just about goods, it's about stories. You're led through a back courtyard you didn't know existed. Until today, that is. The gate opens with a yawn, revealing a long dirt road lined with wagons. Each one is decorated in peculiar, overly enthusiastic signage. Merkel and Sons, purveyors of lightly haunted furniture. Fresh echoes from the mountain caves. One-Eyed Nell's emporium of extremely specific candles. Pharaoh waves cheerfully at the vendors. Barter Day. The tavern trades memories for marvels. You blink. We're trading memories? Just the ones we can spare, he replies. And indeed, a woman with silver gloves is currently accepting a memory of the last time someone said, "I missed you," and meant it, in exchange for a rug that sings lullabies about turnips. You wander between carts. There's a booth where someone sells pockets. Just pockets, lined with secrets. Another cart offers shadows shaped like extinct animals. And one vendor, very seriously, is offering bottled sarcasm. But then, you come across a man with a long, leafy beard sitting under a crooked sign that simply says, "Trade a truth for a lie." You pause. He gestures at the empty seat across from him. Only one per customer. You sit. He pulls out 2 coins, 1 gold, 1 silver. Speak a truth you've never said aloud. Your throat tightens. But somehow in this place, in this moment, you do. You whisper, "Sometimes I pretend I'm braver than I am." The man smiles gently and hands you the silver coin. Then this is your lie. You've never hesitated. It's warm in your palm, not hot, comforting, like a kind of kindness you didn't expect. You pocket it because you might need a lie, that gentle. Someday. The rest of the morning passes in a blur of wonder and mild danger. Someone tries to sell you an umbrella that attracts rain. A goat-shaped automaton recites sonnets about your eyebrows. And a small child offers you a marble, in exchange for permission to be a little weird sometimes. You accept, of course. Eventually the tavern bell chimes, signaling the end of barter day. The vendors pack up their oddities, the cheese chorus takes a final bow, and the courtyard empties, leaving behind only footprints and the lingering scent of peppermints and prophecy. Back inside, the tavern glows with new objects. There's a rocking chair that hums sea shanties, a mirror that flatters everyone just slightly more than it should, and a bookshelf that reorders itself depending on your mood. You sit near the hearth, flipping through a book that doesn't have a title, just the word soon on the cover. Pharaoh sits beside you, sipping something green that fizzes softly. "You traded," he says. You nod. A truth for a lie. "And did it help?" You consider. "I think it reminded me that both can be useful." Pharaoh chuckles. "That's the trick, knowing when to wear each one." Then he gets serious. Well, tavern serious, which still includes a marshmallow stuck to his sleeve. "There's a place we haven't shown you yet." You glance up. "Another cellar?" He shakes his head. "Worse. The archives." You shiver. Not from fear, exactly, but from the weight of that word. He stands, offers a hand. "Come on, it's almost nightfall." That's when the archives wake up. You follow him through a narrow hallway that curves slightly to the left in a way your eyes don't like. The door is plain wood, but something behind it buzzes softly like a wasp made of paper and whispers. He opens it. Inside is a room full of drawers. Not bookshelves. Drawers. Hundreds of them, stacked to the ceiling, each labeled with names you almost recognize. The archives, Pharaoh says, don't store facts, they store versions. He pulls open one at random. Inside, a tiny stage. You peer closer. There's a reenactment happening of your arrival at the tavern. But in this version, you tripped over a cat and demanded a job as a chimney sweep. Pharaoh shrugs. Not quite how it happened, but close enough to be charming. Each drawer, he explains, holds a different interpretation of a memory. Not lies, not exactly, but not the whole truth either. Which one is real, you ask? Pharaoh points at your heart. Whichever one you carry forward. You open a drawer at random. It's a moment from years ago, a winter day. Someone holding your hand. The sky purple with snowlight. You don't recognize the person, but the feeling? The feeling is yours. You close it gently, because not every drawer needs to be opened all the way. By the time you leave the archives, the tavern is lit with that soft golden twilight that only appears when the stars are rehearsing backstage. You exhale. And as you pass the singing cheese, now rehearsing harmonies with the butter churn, you realize something. The tavern isn't a place. It's a reminder of the parts of yourself you left behind, of the magic you forgot was real, of the stories still waiting to be traded, sung, whispered, or rewritten entirely. And as night falls gently over the roof, you wonder, what will you trade for tomorrow? And will it be worth it? You smile. Probably, especially if it comes with a singing sandwich. The sandwich does end up singing, by the way. Not well, but with heart. It's somewhere between a lullaby and a sea shanty, and you're pretty sure the lettuce is off-key. Still, you hum along because that's just good manners in a place like this. Tonight the tavern feels slower, softer, like it's exhaling after a long, strange day. You sit by the window watching the fog roll in, thick and velvety like someone spilled milk into the night. Lamps flicker in the distance, and you swear the mist makes shapes. Dancing figures, maybe, or regrets. Hard to tell at this hour. Pharaoh appears with 2 mugs of something that smells like cinnamon and quiet rebellion. No trials tonight, he says. Just stories. You nod. You're in the mood for something slower. Maybe a little sad. The kind of story that lingers like smoke on your clothes the next day. Tabard joins you, carrying a bundle wrapped in a scarf. He sets it on the table with the kind of reverence normally reserved for royal infants or really good cheese. Found this in the attic, he says. Inside the scarf is a book. No title, no author. Just a cover made of stitched-together parchment, soft and warm like worn-in leather gloves. Pharaoh whistles. That's not just any book. Tabard nods, solemnly. It's the Lost Guest Book. You blink. People used to sign in? Oh, not sign, Tabard says. They wrote stories, confessions, bits of themselves they couldn't leave behind. The book opens with a sigh. Inside, pages and pages of half-faded ink, sketches in the margins, pressed flowers from forgotten gardens. And the entries. One guest swears they were once a dragon, but got tired of the politics. Another left behind a recipe for stew that doubles as a truth serum. One simply wrote, I loved her, even when I shouldn't have, and signed it, with a red feather. The book hums faintly in your hands. Waiting. Pharaoh tilts his head. You don't have to write, but most do. So you do. Nothing dramatic, just a sentence. I'm not sure who I was when I arrived, but I think I like who I'm becoming. You close the book. It glows briefly, then settles back into silence. Outside, the fog thickens, hugging the tavern in secrecy. That's when the bell rings. Not the tavern bell, the road bell. It tolls only when someone arrives from far away, or when someone decides to leave. Everyone looks toward the door. It creaks open, and in steps a woman, tall, wrapped in blue fabric that moves like water, eyes sharp, smile crooked, boots dusty from places you haven't imagined yet. She carries a lantern that doesn't glow. It reflects, shows not light, but memory. She scans the room. Then her gaze lands on you. Thought I might find you here, she says. You blink. Do I know you? She smiles. Not yet, but you will. Pharaoh whispers. A wayfinder. Rare. They don't come unless the story's about to turn. The woman gestures toward the hearth. May I sit? Everyone nods. She lowers herself onto a cushion, sets down her lantern and says, Tonight, I bring a tale from the outer roads. A true one, though you may not believe it. You lean forward, and she begins. It's a tale of a tavern at the edge of a cliff, built from shipwreck wood and bound with promises. The patrons are sailors, who never made it to shore. They sing songs that keep the sea asleep, and pour drinks that taste like dreams you almost had. In this tavern, time forgets itself. People arrive moments before they leave. Arguments end before they begin. And the only rule is, don't look down. Of course someone does. A traveler with questions. Always, the traveler with questions. They peer over the cliff and see themselves falling and flying and becoming. The story ends with that traveler walking back inside and asking for one more cup of whatever keeps the stars from flickering out. The woman's voice fades, and for a moment, no one moves. Then Pharaoh exhales, very slowly. That story's not written in the archives. It will be, the woman replies. Soon. She stands, looks at you again. You're close, she says, to the next threshold. You don't ask what she means. You already know. She leaves without fanfare. Just the soft closing of the door and a faint trail of mist that smells like old paper and possibilities. Tabard stretches. Well, that settles that. Settles what, you ask? That the road's waking up again, and that you might be meant to walk it. The hearth crackles in agreement, and for the first time the tavern feels less like a resting place and more like a launch pad. You sit a little straighter, not quite ready to go, but not afraid to leave when the time comes. For now the tavern gives you warmth, a moment, a lull between chapters. You sip your drink. It tastes like something ending gently and something else just beginning. Outside the fog listens. Inside the silence smiles. And upstairs the guest book waits. You don't sleep. Not in the normal sense, anyway. That night, you lie in the little loft above the hearth, listening to the sounds of the tavern breathing. Yes, breathing, slow and steady, like an old beast curled around a fire. Floorboards creak with memories. Wind tickles the shutters with secrets. And somewhere, faintly, someone is humming in a language that doesn't belong to any country you know. It's not insomnia. It's more like your thoughts refuse to settle, as if they've grown wings and are testing them out on the rafters. When morning finally seeps in, it doesn't crash through the window like in other places. Here, it arrives politely, like a cat at your feet, curling around your ankles before you're quite awake. You find Pharaoh already downstairs, polishing mugs, with a cloth that seems to change color depending on your mood. He glances up, then down at the cloth, which shifts to a deep, moody purple. Huh, he says. Thinking about leaving, are we? You blink. How did you... He gestures with the cloth. She only turns that color when someone's weighing. They're options. You slide onto a stool. I don't even know where I'd go. Pharaoh shrugs. The road doesn't ask for plans, just footsteps. And then he says the thing that shifts something deep inside you. But you can't leave. Just yet. Not before the feast of misremembering. You pause. That sounds comforting and slightly ominous. Exactly right, says Tabard, who pops up from behind the counter like an enthusiastic mushroom. It's tonight. Happens once a year, or once a week, depending on who you ask. The feast of misremembering, you learn, is not about celebrating facts. It's about honoring the stories we think happened. The ones we tell ourselves in the dark. The ones we've polished over time until they shine in all the wrong places. Every guest who's ever passed through the tavern is invited, physically, or just in memory. The tables are extended, pushed together until they snake like a question mark through the entire common room. Plates are stacked high with food that tastes like childhood, or the best version of regret. Some dishes require a little forgetting to enjoy properly. You're asked to contribute a dish. I don't know how to cook, you protest. That's perfect, says Tabard. Half the dishes here shouldn't exist either. So you close your eyes and try to remember a taste. Not a real one, but one that should have existed. Something between cinnamon toast and apology. You focus hard. And in your hands appears a warm, golden pastry filled with jam that sparkles like starlight. You don't question it. No one else does either. By nightfall, The tavern is transformed. Lanterns are lit with soft, nostalgic fire, each flickering flame showing a glimpse of something forgotten. A lost toy, an old friend's laugh, a place you thought you'd never leave. The guests arrive slowly. Some are solid. Some are missed. Some walk in with boots heavy from the road. Others simply appear, as if they'd always been sitting there, waiting for someone to notice. You recognize faces from the guest book. A man who once claimed he'd turned into a tree for a decade. A woman who wears earrings made of promises. A child with eyes like thunderstorms who carries a satchel full of half-written goodbyes. They all greet you like an old friend. You're seated near the center, across from a version of yourself that might have been. Their smile is slightly sharper, their eyes a little more tired. You don't speak. You just eat and nod and share the silence between versions. The first toast is given by an elderly man wearing 3 scarves and no shoes. To the things we meant to say, he says, raising a glass. And the courage to say them wrong anyway. The second toast is given by a raven perched on a wine bottle. To what we thought we knew, it croaks. And the people who didn't correct us, you raise your glass too. Not because you fully understand, no one ever does, but because it feels right to honor the broken stories, the bent truths, the memories that have gone soft around the edges. Later in the night, you find yourself walking through the corridor of old coats. Yes, the tavern has one. Don't all proper places? This one holds garments left behind by travelers who didn't want to carry their burdens onward. Each coat tells a story. One smells like fear that was finally faced. Another jingles with keys to doors that no longer exist. You find your own coat hanging there. Except you don't remember leaving it. It's the one you wore before all this. The version of you that still flinched at uncertainty. Still craved explanations. You slip it on just to see. It's too tight, too narrow somehow. You take it off and hang it back with a quiet apology. Then you return to the feast. By now, the tables are half empty. Not because the guests have left, but because some of them were never really here to begin with. They fade gently like fog dissolving in the morning sun. Pharaoh stands and begins the final toast. To misremembering, he says, because sometimes the wrong version of a story is kinder. Everyone drinks, and the food turns to memory on your tongue. You leave a bite uneaten, as is tradition, to honor the things you'll never quite recall. When the last guest vanishes into the night, and the last plate is cleared by invisible hands, Pharaoh places a small note in your palm. 3 words, almost time now. You don't ask what it means. You already know, because the tavern is shifting again. You can feel it in your bones, in the way the floorboards seem to tilt just slightly toward the door, in the way the stars blink slower, as if waiting for a decision, in the quiet understanding that tomorrow or the day after, or some morning very soon, you'll be the one walking out that door. You try to sleep again that night, you really do. But the bed feels different now, like it's remembering someone else. Maybe one of the guests from the feast, or maybe a version of you that's already left. The blanket smells like smoke and nostalgia, and every time you close your eyes, the tavern creaks softly like it's whispering just out of reach. So you get up, not in a dramatic, storm the barricades kind of way. Just quietly. Your feet know the steps before your mind does. You take the long way down, past the guest book, still humming, past the hearth, still glowing, past Pharaoh, still pretending to sleep on a bench. You push open the front door. Outside, a hush, not silence, just a particularly thoughtful kind of quiet. And standing just at the edge of the mist is the woman in blue, the wayfinder. Her lantern is still dark, still reflective. She doesn't speak at first, just watches you. You wait. Eventually, she says, "I thought you might come. Am I leaving?" You ask. She shrugs. "That's not a question I get to answer." You look back at the door. The golden light still spills out in a perfect rectangle. You can hear a chair squeak, a bottle being corked, someone sighing upstairs. "It's warm in there," you say. "It's safe," she replies. Then she steps aside and gestures down the road. "But this way is true." Ah, truth. The road stretches out before you, blanketed in early fog, the kind that hides potholes and surprises in equal measure. You don't walk it yet. Instead, you ask, "Where does it go?" She smiles. "You'll know when you arrive." Of course she says that. Wayfinders always do. You look down at your hands. They're not quite the same hands that opened that tavern door on your first night here. A little steadier, a little more unsure in the right ways. Then, from behind you, a voice. You forgot this. It's tabard, barefoot, holding something wrapped in cloth. You take it and open it. It's your pastry from the feast, still warm, still sparkling. "I figured you'd want a piece of who you used to be," he says. Then he does something unexpected. He hugs you, not tightly, not dramatically, just enough. "Don't die weird," he says. "I'll do my best," you answer, because what else do you say to that? Pharaoh appears next, holding your old coat, the one that didn't quite fit anymore. "You might not wear it again," he says, "but it helps to remember what you've outgrown." You take it, not for warmth, but for context. He steps back. "When you come back, and you will, bring a story that makes the fire nervous." The wayfinder chuckles at that. They always do. The two men step back into the tavern. The door doesn't close. It just waits, like everything else. You look at the road one more time. Then you take a breath. Not a heroic one. Not the kind movies swell their music for. Just a breath, and your foot steps forward. The first crunch of gravel under your boots is louder than it should be. But after that, it gets easier. The wayfinder walks beside you for a while. Doesn't say much. Just keeps pace. At one point, she asks, "Do you know what day it is?" You shake your head. "Neither do I," she says. "But that's part of the magic. You don't talk about where you're going. That would spoil it. Instead, you trade small memories." She tells you about a tavern that once served laughter on toast. You tell her about the time the floorboards whispered your name. She nods like that's perfectly normal. Later, as dawn starts to press gently against the horizon, she stops. "This is where I leave you," she says. The road forks ahead. Left, thick forest. Right, stone bridge with a broken railing. Straight, a hill covered in mist, no visible path at all. You ask, "Which way is right?" She answers, "They all are, depending on the story you want." You glance back. The tavern is barely a memory behind you now. Just a warm smudge in the fog. You pick the path that feels least familiar. As you walk, The trees begin to hum. Not loudly, just enough. Branches lean in like gossiping aunties. Leaves shimmer with rumors. You start to laugh, quietly but genuinely, because you finally get it. This road? It's not about arriving. It's about collecting strange things to say at future taverns. Somewhere behind you, the tavern exhales one last time. You don't hear it, but you feel it. And somewhere ahead, the wind starts to tell a story you haven't heard before. You lean in and keep walking. It starts to rain, not aggressively, more like the sky is trying to remember how crying works. The drops are warm, almost apologetic, like the kind that fall when you're talking to someone you shouldn't still love, but kind of do anyway. They patter gently on your shoulders and trickle down your nose in a way that feels more like a blessing than a bother. You adjust the old coat, not to wear it, just to feel its weight, and press on. You pass through a grove of leaning trees, each one tilting as if caught mid-whisper. Moss coats the trunks like velvet, and beneath your feet, the earth feels soft and considerate. Then, without warning, the road curves sharply and leads you directly to another tavern. But this one is wrong. Not bad, just not yours. It's too clean, too quiet. The windows shine like freshly polished truth, and the wooden sign above the door reads, "The Honest Pint." You hesitate, but your feet have already taken you up the steps. Inside, it smells like dried herbs, pine smoke, and disappointment. A tall, straight-backed woman behind the bar polishes a glass that doesn't need polishing. She sees you, smiles tightly. "You're early," she says. "For what?" you ask, confused. She blinks. "The interrogation, of course." "Ah. You've walked into a place where stories are unwelcome unless they can be verified. That's dangerous, and a little boring." You glance around. The patrons here sip their drinks without joy. Each table has a little stack of parchment beside it. You peek at one. Forms. Forms for recording who said what, when, and whether it can be cross-referenced with a known chronicle. A bard in the corner strums a lute while reciting tax records in C minor. Charming. You sit anyway. Because sometimes, the only way forward is through the places that challenge you. A man across from you clears his throat. He has the look of someone who's read too many scrolls and not enough people. "State your origin," he demands. You answer, "The road." He narrows his eyes. "That's not a valid location." You smile gently. "It is, though, just not on your map." The tavern's air stiffens. You can almost feel the walls judging your narrative structure. But then, someone behind the bar drops a spoon. It clatters loudly, disruptively, wonderfully. A small girl seated by the hearth giggles, and that tiny break, that fracture, is enough. You take your chance. "I have a story," you announce, standing. The room turns to you reluctantly. "Once," you begin, "there was a tavern built from lost intentions. Its roof was made of second chances, and its walls were lined with almosts. And in it, people came to remember things they'd never experienced." Silence. The woman behind the bar glares at you. "That's unverifiable." You nod. "Exactly." Then, you walk out, just like that, because this isn't your tavern. It never was. The road greets you like an old friend who never asks where you've been. And for the first time in hours, or maybe days, you laugh, out loud. It echoes down the empty, Lane like a dare. A short while later, as dusk begins to flirt with the trees, you come across a fork in the road again. But this one doesn't offer 3 paths. It offers 20, each marked with a different symbol carved into ancient creaking wood. One shows a broken crown. Another, a cat made of fog. A third, just a single teacup with a crack down the middle. And the last one, way off to the side, nearly hidden, is marked with a golden pastry. You blink. No way, you follow it. Of course you do. The path is narrow and winding, lined with odd little milestones, broken instruments, gloves that have lost their partners, journals with half-finished sentences. It leads you to a clearing. In the center stands a single chair and a sign that reads, "Sit if you remember." You do. Not everything, but enough. So you sit. And suddenly, you're not in the woods anymore. You're in a room made of candlelight and whispers. Around you, figures take shape, not fully formed but familiar. These are the stories that never got told, the ones you almost shared, the ones you buried in polite laughter and changed subjects. They don't accuse. They just wait, and you begin to tell them one by one. You tell them about the tavern with the guest book that growled. You tell them about the feast of misremembering and the man who toasted with a raven. You tell them about the version of yourself you saw at the table. And as you speak, each story listens, and then folds gently into your coat pocket, like a letter returned to sender. When you finally stand, the room fades, but your pockets feel heavier. You are carrying stories now, not memories, not facts, but stories. And they matter. You return to the road as the stars blink on, one by one. They seem closer than before. You swear you can hear them whispering, almost. Home. You don't ask where home is, you just keep walking toward it. You wake up by accident. You didn't mean to fall asleep leaning against a tree with mushrooms softly glowing at the base. But your eyes must have closed between one breath and the next. And now they're open again. The stars are gone. Replaced by a blue so pale it feels like the sky is still brushing its teeth. Early morning, that awkward in-between part of the day when the world hasn't committed to being awake yet. You stretch. The chair you dreamed about is nowhere to be found. Neither is the sign, but the weight in your coat pockets is still there, a pleasant reminder that the stories stayed with you. You stand, dust off a few pine needles, and there, waiting in the road like it never left, is the cart. Yes, that cart. The one you rode in with. The one pulled by that suspiciously clever donkey. The one whose wheels should have broken 20 metaphors ago. It creaks as you approach, like it's trying not to seem too eager. A note is pinned to the side. Back so soon? Figured you might want a ride for the rest. Tea. You grin. Inside the cart is your old traveling bag, the one you lost somewhere between the whispering forest and that tavern of uncomfortable truths. It's been patched. There's a ribbon tied to the handle. There are crumbs in the bottom, too, glittering, possibly still edible. You climb in, and the cart starts moving without instruction. The donkey flicks an ear but doesn't look back. You pass a village where everyone's asleep, standing up, another where the crows wear tiny helmets, another still where every rooftop has a wind vane shaped like your face. Okay, that one might be a hallucination. Hard to say. At one point, you see someone waving. It's you, or a version of you that never got on the cart in the first place, still walking, still collecting. You wave back, it smiles. By mid-morning the road smooths out. The air smells like bread, and salt, and memory. You begin to recognize things. A bent mile marker, a tree that once gave you bad advice. The lopsided sign for the Swillen lantern, half hidden behind ivy now, but unmistakable. The donkey stops. You get out. Stand there for a moment. The door is closed this time. No golden light spilling through. Just quiet. You knock because some rituals are worth respecting. The door opens, and Pharaoh is there, wearing the same apron and the same grin, and maybe even the same hangover. "Took you long enough," he says. "You, step inside. It smells like dust and cinnamon, and the last time you felt known." Tabard is at the bar, carving something into the wood with the dullest knife imaginable. He doesn't look up. "Back already?" he mutters. "I forgot something," you say. He slides over a pastry without a word. You take it, bite in, still warm, still absurdly good. Then you notice something, a small plaque on the wall above the hearth. It wasn't there before. It reads, "In honor of the one who left, remembered and returned." You touch it gently. The hearth flares to life on cue. Of course it does. Upstairs you hear someone singing the wrong lyrics to a lullaby. Downstairs the cat is still playing chess against itself and losing. Everything is exactly as it was, and not at all the same, because you're not the same. You slide into your old seat, the one in the corner with a view of the door in case anything interesting decides to walk in. Pharaoh brings you tea. You don't ask for it, you just need it, and he knows. "Are you staying this time?" he asks, like someone who's asked this before. You don't answer. Not yet. Instead, you reach into your coat pocket, pull out one of the stories you carried back, unfold it slowly, and begin to tell it. Not loudly, not for applause, just for the fire, and the floorboards, and the old beams overhead that creak with interest. You speak softly, deliberately, the way people talk when they're home, but still whispering just in case. And as the story spins out from your mouth, the room starts to fill again. Not with people, with possibility, with everything you left out the first time. You catch Pharaoh smiling behind the bar, Tabard too. The ghost, in the rafters, sighs contentedly, and in the corner, someone who wasn't there before lifts a mug and says, "Tell that one again, but slower." You laugh and begin again. There's a stillness now, not the awkward kind that happens when someone says something too honest at the dinner table, but the deep, restful kind that settles in just after the last log on the fire gives its final crackle. You've been telling stories for who knows how long? Days? Minutes? Maybe just one very good hour that stretched itself out like a cat in a sunbeam. The tavern's quiet, not empty, never empty, but softer somehow. Tabard's asleep with his boots still on. Pharaoh is humming tunelessly as he wipes down mugs that have already been cleaned for 3 washes. The rafters creak gently, as if nodding in time. And you're still in your corner seat. Only now, you're sitting differently, relaxed, loosened, like the weight you were carrying finally got the chance to unpack itself and stretch its legs. There's a mug of something next to you, cool now, but comforting in its presence. There's a pastry wrapper folded neatly like a letter you've read a dozen times, but still enjoy opening. You glance around, and then, quite unexpectedly, you remember something. You were never supposed to stay. This was always going to be a rest stop, wasn't it? A warm light on a long road. And now the road is calling again. Not loudly. It's not rude. It's more like a gentle cough in the background. The kind someone makes when they're too polite to say, "Hurry up," but kind of mean it anyway. You rise slowly, stretch. The tavern seems to exhale with you. You walk past the bar, past the crooked stairwell, past the door that still squeaks like a guilty conscience. Outside, the world is waiting, but it's different now. The road ahead doesn't feel like punishment or mystery. It feels like invitation, like a story you haven't read yet, but already know you'll love. You turn back one last time, and there they are. Pharaoh, leaning in the doorway with arms crossed, and that impossible knowing smile. Tabard, now awake, squinting at you like you're a puzzle he's mostly figured out. "Leaving again?" Pharaoh says, like it's not even a question. You nod. "Don't forget your coat," Tabard adds, tossing it to you with surprising accuracy for someone who can't find his own socks half the time. You shrug it on. It fits better than it used. To funny that, you start walking, and behind you the door doesn't slam. It doesn't even close. It just sort of fades, because maybe this tavern isn't a place you can return to. Maybe it's a place that returns to you when you need it, when the road gets too quiet, or the sky too loud, when the stories stack up inside your ribs and start knocking to be let out. You walk, and the world leans in. A breeze carries the smell of salt again. The trees stretch their shadows across the path like lazy listeners, and somewhere far ahead you think you hear music. Maybe a flute, maybe just whine through tall grass. It's the kind of sound that makes you slow down just to hear it better. You breathe deep. The coat rustles softly, the pockets a little lighter. Now, you've told the stories. You've emptied yourself out in the most wonderful way. And in return, the world feels bigger. Not scarier. Not harder, just roomier, like it made space for what you gave back. You pass a milestone, carved in the old way. Faint letters that read, "You are not lost." You smile, because that's the best kind of sign. The road curves gently. The light gets softer. Your thoughts start to slow down. The details of the tavern grow blurry, but in a warm, watercolor sort of way, like they're being painted over by sleep. One stroke at a time. Your breath deepens. The trees hush their gossip. The road narrows, and somewhere in the distance, a door swings open, just for you. You don't rush, you don't need to. You're safe now, wrapped in the echo of voices and firelight and slightly burnt pastry crust. And as your steps grow lighter, your eyes begin to close. And the last sound you hear is someone, somewhere, whispering, "Thanks for stopping by."